She'd found new love in a new city.
I was happy for her. Happy that she's finally met someone.
They was lovey-dovey.
It was like a fairy tale.
But behind closed doors, things aren't always as picture perfect as they seem.
She became a different person when she was with him.
There'd been some period of time that they had not heard from her.
I did not know where my baby was.
It was not unusual for Cree to leave town. People run away and try to get a new life.
Is this a case of miscommunication or murder?
This was the kind of person who, if there was a disagreement, would probably resort to violence.
I'm very suspicious that she was involved. Somebody knows more than what they were saying. She would never, ever leave her daughter. She's not going to do that.
Desperation will keep her family searching for the painful truth.
This is a nightmare that nobody wanted to believe.
His mom is Miss Will. That do terrible things for no reason, just because.
July 1st, 2016. It's a warm Friday evening in Newark, New Jersey, when local resident Dee Dee Smith receives a worrying call about her 7-year-old granddaughter.
Her other grandmother. She called me and told me my granddaughter had an ear infection.
She says she tried taking her to the clinic, but she couldn't because she didn't have her insurance card.
School had let out in June, and Cree had taken her daughter to stay with the daughter's grandmother.
You just need the card number. Cree should have that.
She told me. I called down there. I didn't hear no answer. So that's when she called me.
That doesn't make sense. Let me try her.
She was a good mother. Her baby was the most important thing in her life.
That's what made me start thinking something was wrong.
It's also what prompts Cree's mother to make her own worried call to her daughter.
Hey, this is Cree. Please leave a message.
Hi, Cree. It's Mama. Give me a call when you get this.
But Dee Dee can't know that this is just the first in a series of unanswered calls.
Dee Dee wanted to believe that it was just a misunderstanding, but something felt wrong.
As a mother, you just have this intuition, and in that moment, Dee Dee knew something was wrong.
Growing up in New Jersey, Cree Smith always had a special bond with her mother and older sister.
We did a lot together, even though we was like 8 years apart. Everywhere I went, she went.
Loved and supported, Cree was a happy, bubbly child.
She always joked. She always had a smile on her face.
She was just very giggly all the time. I can't even think of a day that she wasn't cracking jokes.
If Cree wasn't cracking jokes, chances are she was cracking a book.
She was smart. She started reading and writing at the age of 2. When she started school, she got skipped a year.
She was always on the honor roll. She did very well in school.
She loved being smart. And she was a kid who had a plan. She knew what she wanted out of life.
She wanted to become a social worker.
In 2007, Cree graduated high school and went on to college in pursuit of her dream. But during Cree's sophomore year, her plans took an unexpected turn.
Cree was still in college when she got pregnant.
She met a guy named Andre Harris, and they had been dating for a while.
Hey. You got you something to satisfy that craving?
Bless you. I swear, the only feels make me sick right now.
It wasn't like it was just a fling. I mean, they were serious. They was really serious. They were looking into marriage.
How are we going to do this?
Together.
With Andre at her side and her family's support, Cree gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Grace and finished college.
Everybody wanted her to succeed and, graduate and do what she had to do for her daughter, so she always had help.
Her sister was there. Her godmother was there. Everybody who loved Cree was there helping her.
Though she'd worked hard to achieve her dream, it wasn't without sacrifice.
Children bring a whole different dynamic to a relationship, and Andre and Cree were no different. things began to get a little more complicated and complex.
After my granddaughter was maybe like 4 or 5 years old, everything went south.
They grew apart. They grew different interests. They just didn't fit with each other after a while.
I don't think it was a bad breakup at the time, but, he went his way and she went her way with my niece.
Andre wasn't trying to be some absentee father, some deadbeat dad. He was very determined to be in his daughter's life.
Though he'd have to do so from a distance. In early 2014, not long after the breakup, Cree packed her bags for Greensboro, North Carolina.
She went to North Carolina with one of her friends. I thought it was just a vacation, but then she was like, I'm making this permanently.
She told me that she had a job opportunity down there.
She had gone on a few interviews while she was down there and had gotten a job offer to work as a counselor with a teen outreach program.
Cree had always thrived with new adventures and opportunities, and this was right up her alley.
She's never been, scared to try new things. So she went to North Carolina.
She wanted a new start. She wanted to start everything off new.
She was in a situation where she could reboot her life and just have a nice, fresh start.
Soon, Cree and her daughter were building a new life.
She had a good job. She had an apartment. She had a car.
She seemed to be doing fine down there.
She made a lot of friends quickly. When I met Cree, she had a couple friends already.
Including 23-year-old Patricia Bronson.
Moving to a new city can be tough, especially when you don't know anyone very well. But Cree and Patricia developed a strong friendship, and that made the move a lot easier.
It was through that strong friendship that Cree met 23-year-old Desmond Pendergrass.
Oh, girl, he's here. Let me get his attention.
Oh, Lord. How do I look?
Just breathe. You don't spring at me like that.
She always liked the light-skinned guys. That was her thing.
You want a drink?
Sure. Thanks.
I see the connection between them. They're a cute couple.
The relationship blossoms, and before long, they decide to move in together.
She seemed to be happy and satisfied. Life is good for her.
So good that in October of 2015, Cree brought Desmond home to New Jersey to meet her family.
I thought they were a cute couple.
They seemed very lovey-dovey. I mean, they were holding hands and walking and talking.
They were also making plans.
I asked him, what's his future with my sister? So he was like, I want to marry her, and I want her to have another baby.
Cree, her daughter, and Desmond became like a little family. And this is something that Cree wanted the whole time.
I was happy for her.
While Cree enjoyed being home with family, she knew that her life was in North Carolina and with Desmond.
They're going to have this happy life together. I was happy for her. Happy that she's finally met someone that she feels that she wants to marry. Life is good for her.
Though 8 months later, in June of 2016, Cree was back in New Jersey.
School had let out in June, and Cree had taken her daughter up to New Jersey to stay with the daughter's grandmother.
The summertime, when she got to school, she allowed her to go to her father's family house, the grandmother, to stay with her for the summer. The last time I talked to Cree, everything was good. Cree was happy while she was up here.
But now, at the beginning of July, almost 2 weeks after Cree returned to North Carolina, her family is starting to worry.
Cree's daughter had gotten sick in New Jersey when she was staying with her paternal grandparents, and they were desperately trying to reach Cree.
I was like, I can't believe this. So I kept calling and calling.
Desperate to reach Cree, Dee Dee enlists the help of her other daughter, Cree's older sister, Tenalisha.
I started reaching out to people. Have anybody spoken, talked, went to Cree house or anything? A lot of people said they seen her maybe when she came back from Jersey, but nobody had a recent contact with her.
Finally, when Cree's boyfriend Desmond reaches back out to Tenalisha, he delivers some stunning news.
Oh, thank God. Is Cree with you?
What? Not. He's not here.
I was asking him, where's Cree? He was like, Cree left and went to Florida.
We're moving to Miami. I can't believe she didn't tell you.
After moving to Greensboro, North Carolina, single mother Cree Asia Smith had taken a second chance at love with her new boyfriend, Desmond Pendergrass.
They're going to get married, and they're going to have this happy life together. Her, Desmond, and her daughter.
But now, 2 years after making her sudden, unannounced move to North Carolina, it looks as if Cree has done it again.
Cree Smith's family had not heard from her, and they were unable to contact her for a few days.
But when Cree's sister reached out to Desmond, he said that she had gone to Florida.
According to Desmond, she went to Florida for a job interview and ended up getting the job, and they wanted her to start the job immediately.
It's almost a repeat of how she ended up in North Carolina.
Isn't it great? We're all going to move down at the end of the summer. Company, they're going to put her up and help her get a place.
Desmond's excitement does little to diminish Cree's sister's concern, though.
Asking him, have you spoken to Cree? Tell Cree to call me. Tell Cree to call her mother.
Nobody's talked to Cree in over a week.
Really? Desmond is a little shocked when the family starts talking about Cree is missing.
When's the last time you talked to her?
I mean, I guess it's been a little while, but she said she was real busy.
He sounded like he was a little concerned about her.
But Cree's mother, Dee Dee, is more than a little concerned, especially after more than a dozen calls to her daughter go unanswered.
So I kept calling and I couldn't get no answer. Couldn't nobody get in touch with her.
Finally, she decides to act.
At a certain point, the family begins to worry that something's not quite right.
Greensboro Police Department.
This trip in Florida, something may have happened to Cree.
I called the police department down there in Greensboro to put in for a missing person.
It's not like her not to call us.
Okay. Has she ever taken off before?
Well, yeah. Her move to North Carolina. Well, yeah. Her move to North Carolina was out of the blue.
Dee Dee was forced to explain how Cree had more or less moved to North Carolina on a whim.
She just got sick of Jersey and she wanted a fresh new start. So that's why she went down to North Carolina.
Is it possible that she's just done that again?
No, not without Grace.
Cree always kept a check on her daughter.
She used to call her daughter 2 or 3 times a day, every day.
Nobody heard from Cree for like 2 weeks.
The lack of contact with her daughter was a pretty pretty big flag.
It's not her personality to not even speak to her own child.
With a missing persons report in place, police in Greensboro waste no time opening up an official investigation.
Understandably, what they want to do is talk to her boyfriend, Desmond.
Mr. Pendergrass?
Yeah.
We need to ask you some questions about Cree Smith.
Sure, come on in.
The apartment looked lived in. It wasn't particularly clean, but that's not uncommon.
So we spoke with Cree's mother recently. She mentioned she was heading to Miami for a job interview.
Yeah, it was too good of an opportunity.
In his mind, she went down to get a job, got the job, she's doing her thing.
You wouldn't happen to have an address for her down there?
Yeah, hang on a second. Here's this from the bank.
Her bank account's address on them had been changed to an address in Florida.
So now detectives thought maybe Cree's family was worried for no reason.
That's what it looked like. Somebody just left town and put all their stuff in the car and moved to Florida.
I've got to settle things here, and then I'm going to meet up with her down there.
It made sense. This seemed exactly like what she did last time.
We'll be in touch.
Please.
While Desmond's account seems genuine, there's only one way to find out if it's true.
I said, can y'all go inside and check the apartment in Florida to make sure everything was all right?
Detectives enlist the help of their counterparts at the Miami Police Department for a welfare check.
Police show up to the apartment where she's supposed to be staying. They go and knock on the door.
Mrs. Smith, Miami Police.
There's no answer.
It was dark and it looked like nobody was home.
It's a setback that won't deter officers from getting to the truth.
The police go and talk to the manager of the apartment because they want to get in.
What did you say the name was again?
Smith. Cree Asia Smith.
Are you sure that's the right name?
Yes, ma'am.
There's nobody who's living there or who has lived there by the name of Cree.
They don't have any record of her at all.
Cree hasn't moved to Miami. She has vanished without a trace.
It is not a crime to go missing. If you are over 18 years of age, in most states, privacy laws typically protect the rights of adults who voluntarily choose to remain out of contact with family and friends. Unless there's evidence of foul play, or the missing person is potentially a danger to themselves, police are not obligated to inform the family of the missing person's whereabouts if they are located. By July 3, 2016, 2 days since her mother filed a missing persons report, detectives investigating the disappearance of Cree Asia Smith believe they've tracked the single mother to an address in Miami, Florida.
Police show up to the apartment that's listed for Cree, where she's supposed to be staying.
But there's no answer to their knock, and no indication that Cree had ever lived there either.
The apartment office was contacted and indicated they had no record of her.
This leaves the cops scratching their heads.
Things get even more puzzling when detectives follow up on the clue that led them to the Miami apartment in the first place.
The address on Cree's bank account had been changed to the Florida address, but according to bank records, it had been done online, and Cree had never actually been in Florida at a branch at all.
So it became kind of obvious that she hadn't actually physically gone to Florida, that perhaps somebody had tried to make it look like she'd gone to Florida.
But who? The obvious first choice is her boyfriend, Desmond Pendergrass.
I mean, all of the information that was from Desmond.
But detectives could not rule out that Cree had been lying when she told Desmond that she was going to Miami.
Maybe she wanted to abandon Greensboro and abandon her relationship with Desmond. All kinds of people run away and leave their situation and try to get a new life.
Cree had actually did this more or less before when she up and moved to North Carolina 2 years earlier.
That's how she was. If she wanted to go somewhere or wanted to do something, she would just up and go.
However, when detectives circle back to Cree's family, they are adamant she didn't disappear on purpose.
Something's wrong. She would not leave her baby. So I'm thinking, Lord, what could happen? What could be going on?
But without something more concrete, detectives are at a standstill.
Maybe she just ran away to Miami for a break.
Desperate for answers, the family takes matters into their own hands and drives the 500 miles to Greensboro in search of Cree.
My mother and her godmother, Diane, went down there. They made missing poster flyers. They gave it out to people.
We were all trying to find her down there, going around, putting up posters and, asking questions and trying to figure out what happened.
While in Greensboro, Cree's mother and godmother also visit the police station, urging detectives to continue searching for the missing 26-year-old.
They're like, no. This is totally out of the character of Cree to just go missing like this.
Something has happened to Cree because she would never be in a place where her family couldn't contact her about her daughter.
Still, detectives aren't so sure.
When was the last time you spoke to her?
Oh, I believe it's on the 15th. A couple of days after she went back home to North Carolina.
She called me, and it was a strange number, but I answered it anyway because it was a North Carolina number, and it was her.
Hello?
Hey, it's me. I'm sorry I didn't call in when I got in from Jersey.
I said, girl, what happened to you?
Was everything okay? Yes, nothing.
She said, yeah, everything's all right. Desmond's just getting on my nerves. And I said, okay.
I gotta go.
But
I'll talk to you later.
I didn't hear anything else from her. I called her a few times, and then finally, she texted me, and she said, I'm at work.
No,
I can't talk to you now, but I'll call you later.
Did she call back?
No.
So if Desmond was getting on her nerves, you think she just left him? Probably made up the Miami story on purpose?
Maybe, but that doesn't explain the rest of it.
She wouldn't lose communication with her family. She wouldn't lose communication with me.
At this point in time, detectives didn't really know what to think, so they decided they needed to learn more about Cree's life with Desmond.
They start by speaking to one of her closest friends, Denise Chrisman.
I first met Cree in Greensboro. From day one, we all clicked. That was like my partner in crime. You never seen Cree without Denise.
When detectives follow up with Denise, she's upfront about the nature of her friend's relationship.
We were into each other. That wasn't perfect.
There was ups and downs. There was breakups and makeups.
Denise also said that prior to her disappearance, Cree had been hinting that maybe Desmond wasn't the man for her.
She always talked about dating someone that was educated. Or she always talked about wanting somebody that wanted something for themselves.
I think she just left him, told Desmond she's going to Miami.
At first, yeah.
I just was like, she needed a break. And then when I got details of her mom, she was not picking up for her daughter. Her daughter was looking for her, trying to get in contact with her. That's when it all started hitting me.
And I just couldn't shake this feeling. Something happened. Something bad.
She don't go without talking to her daughter.
But somebody did something to her.
Any idea who?
Yeah.
Denise had a name for detectives, but it wasn't Desmond.
It's Cree's friend, Patricia Bronson.
I'm very suspicious that she was involved.
Why do you think that?
She said she heard from Cree. All that stuff about Cree leaving town.
And I'm like, she's telling you she's not coming back. How are you the only one talking to this person? The way she was describing the details of it was like somebody that knows more than what they were saying.
Why would Patricia do something to Cree?
She was pretty obsessed with her.
And according to Denise, Patricia had made moves on Desmond too.
I thought that something was going on because I know how she is.
She basically said she's a flirt, but not an innocent one.
She wanted to be like her. She dressed like her. She acted like her.
She moved in on her man. It seems like she wanted to take her place.
It's been 2 weeks since 26-year-old Cree Asia Smith vanished from Greensboro, North Carolina, and detectives have a new lead in their investigation.
A friend of Cree's had just implicated a woman named Patricia Bronson as the person behind Cree's disappearance.
There's no doubt. I'm convinced. There's nothing that can change my mind.
According to Denise, Patricia had her eye on Cree's boyfriend, Desmond Pendergrass.
Apparently, Patricia could be very hands-on with Desmond.
Could there be some type of love interest that would have given Patricia a motive to have wanted Cree off the scene?
Whether Desmond realized it or not.
Desmond always was a flirt, but I don't know if her and Desmond had something going on.
With Denise adamant about Patricia's involvement, detectives bring her in for questioning.
How would you describe your relationship with her?
We're pretty tight.
When was the last time you saw her?
Last month, around the 16th or so.
She said the last time she seen Cree was on a Thursday night, early Friday morning. She stated that she was in an apartment with Cree and Desmond.
This was around the same time that Cree had suddenly stopped returning anyone's phone calls.
Though that's not the only thing about Patricia's story that raises a red flag.
Patricia recalled that Cree and Desmond had been fighting, had been arguing.
You have any idea what they were fighting about?
No, they were fussing at each other, though.
She did indicate it was not uncommon for them to fight.
But according to Patricia, this one was unusual, even for Cree and Desmond.
So it's like that now?
Girl, don't start with me.
Seriously? What happened
Yeah,
again?
seriously.
It was getting pretty intense. It was really escalating.
Hold on, Nikki.
Get the hell out of my damn face.
I should have never messed you in the first place.
Okay, y'all.
I don't need this.
That's why on this night, the friend asked Cree if she wanted to leave with her.
Come on, just come stay at my house tonight and let him cool off.
No.
Are you sure?
They'll be fine. Trust me, he'll settle down.
Cree said, I'm okay, I'm stay here. So she left her.
Is that the last you saw her?
Yeah.
Are you worried?
No. I got a text message from her the next morning.
It was Cree saying that a family emergency had come up and she needed to go to New Jersey.
Was that message simply a decoy to disguise the fact that something had happened to Cree in North Carolina? Or had someone actually lured Cree back to New Jersey prior to her disappearance?
And does Patricia know more than she's leading detectives to believe? While detectives can't be sure, her statement gives them a critical data point.
With that, the police were able to establish that that was the last time anybody that we knew of had actually seen Cree. So now we have perhaps a point in time where she becomes missing.
When detectives subpoena the location data for Cree's cell phone, it seems to solve one piece of the puzzle.
Police decided to check the phone records. And what they find is Cree's phone has never left Greensboro.
Even more telling for detectives, the activity on Cree's phone dropped off dramatically after June 16th.
This coincides with the evening that Cree's friend Patricia witnessed her arguing with Desmond.
They saw very few calls, incoming calls, yes, but as I recall, there were just one or two outgoing calls, and they were made shortly after her disappearance, like within a day.
But who was using it? While Cree's phone records can't say for sure, there's one final avenue left for detectives to explore.
They eventually decided to dig a little deeper into her financial records.
Pulling Cree's transaction history proves to be the break detectives need.
There were 2 ATM transactions the early morning after her disappearance.
And guess what ATMs have? Cameras.
A lot was on the line here. Whoever was at that ATM had Cree's debit card.
Was it Cree herself? Had she just gone into hiding, or was it someone else?
You don't just give someone access to all of your money. Whoever had Cree's debit card had likely harmed Cree to get it.
By mid-July of 2016, almost a month after Cree Asia Smith vanished, detectives in Greensboro, North Carolina are on the verge of a breakthrough in the case.
They found a couple of ATM transactions on her credit card. That really piques their interest.
Transactions that occurred on what detectives now know to be the day after anyone last saw her alive.
They pulled the surveillance footage to see if they could ID who it was that pulled money from her account.
And lo and behold, the person who has been using the bank card is Des.
They had been seen arguing right before she went missing. And now police caught him using her ATM card, withdrawing money the next day.
As the facts continue to mount up, it just becomes more and more evident that he may be the one who's responsible for Cree's disappearance.
A check of Desmond's criminal history only adds fuel to this theory.
The first thing that popped up on Desmond was a bad assault over in High Point, a neighboring city from Greensboro, where he had severely beaten a young lady. He had a history of violence. He was the kind of person who, if there was a disagreement, would probably resort to violence first.
Which makes detectives wonder, could the fight Cree's friend Patricia Bronson had witnessed been the tip of the iceberg?
Maybe he was arguing and fussing with her and then just killed her.
Though exactly what the fight was over remains unclear to detectives. They suspect what Cree told her godmother Diane shortly before her disappearance might offer a clue.
I just believe that she got sick of him. And she was trying to get rid of him. And he didn't want to leave.
Though it's not until Cree's close friend, Shaquilla Reyes, comes forward that they learn the real reason why Cree was sick of Desmond.
Hi. It had taken Shaquilla a while to get in touch with the police because she had been out of town when Cree first disappeared.
When I went back to Greensboro and I seen that she was missing, I'm like, okay, what's going on?
According to Shaquilla, Cree and Desmond's relationship was marred by distrust and jealousy.
He was always on his phone, and you think texting girls and stuff like that. So she always argued about the phone, his phone. She probably was insecure because he cheated a lot. And I was a witness of some of it, so I know what he did.
In addition to Desmond's infidelity, Shaquilla also said that Cree grew tired of Desmond's freeloading, too.
He was not employed, to my knowledge, at the time that she disappeared.
She wants somebody got a job, a car, that somebody can support her.
While Shaquilla's account is compelling, it's not the reason she's chosen to come speak to detectives.
I knew he did something to her because Desmond sent me a video recording her while she's on the bed and she wasn't moving. It was before I even knew she was missing. She was face down and her pants was off. And he asked me a question. He said, "Do you like what you see?" Because he know I like girls also.
At the time, Shaquilla thought it was some sort of a joke. But now she's convinced it was something far more sinister.
Then I went back to Greensboro and I seen that she was missing. I'm like, oh my gosh, she looked like she wasn't breathing in that video.
Despite a growing sense that Desmond has done something horrible to Cree, investigators still have no real proof.
We didn't have a dead body, just a missing person. We're trying to develop some evidence that we can present in the courtroom.
Desperate to build a case against Desmond, detectives circle back to what little evidence they do have, starting with her bank records.
They discovered that on the morning after she turned up missing, her debit card had been used at a home improvement store.
They went to the home improvement store and actually were able to pull up the purchase receipt to see what was actually bought.
The items on the receipt are eye-opening and stomach-churning.
Among the things bought were a handsaw and some heavy-duty construction-strength trash bags. That really piqued everybody's interest, like, wow, this might explain some things here.
All but convinced that Cree is dead, detectives figure it's about time they put the screws to Desmond, if they can find him.
I tried to reach out to him.
and find him.
I tried to reach out to him on different occasions. He stopped taking my phone calls. He blocked me on social media, so I couldn't say anything to him.
At this point, he's bouncing around.
He's trying to dodge everybody, from the police, my mother, me, Diane, everybody.
After locating Desmond on September 1st, 2 months after Cree was reported missing, detectives finally get the chance to sit him down for questioning.
Hey. We need to ask you some questions about Cree Smith. Have you found it? Not yet. We're working on it.
Desmond's playing it cool, acting like he's concerned about Cree.
You care to tell us why you're using her debit card?
We're a couple. We use each other's accounts all the time.
Desmond says, hey, man, Cree left the card behind with him so he could take care of his expenses and cover bills and that sort of thing.
Detectives don't buy it and decide it's time to take a look at one more piece of potential evidence that they haven't searched yet.
Desmond, why don't you stand up? We're going to pat you down, make sure you don't have any weapons on you.
Located in his pocket was a set of car keys.
He's driving Cree's car, and that gives police probable cause to go and take a look.
He's not the world's smartest criminal. Showing up with her car was about as careless as you could be.
Desmond's carefully constructed cover-up continues to fall apart when detectives search Cree's vehicle.
Police hop the trunk, and what they find is very telling.
The trunk liner had stains, brownish stains, that appeared to be consistent with blood.
She was still alive. I think I wanted to believe that. I think I wanted to believe that because I didn't want to be hurt. I didn't want to be sad. And then I started thinking about her daughter and her mom and her sisters and her nieces, what they would be going through if they heard that type of news. Like, I didn't want to think about the worst. I was like, no, she's too strong. She's going to be okay.
On September 1st, 2016, 2.5 months after Cree Asia Smith first disappeared, detectives in Greensboro, North Carolina have just made a startling new discovery.
Police want to follow up with Desmond, and when Desmond shows up, he is driving Cree's car.
The car has what appears to be blood in it, and so it then became, you're under arrest at this time.
With Desmond facing murder charges, detectives press him hard for a confession.
Driving her car with a trunk full of blood. How do you think that's going to look to a jury? It's not what you think.
According to Desmond, once Patricia left, he and Cree did continue their argument, but he wasn't the aggressor.
He said she was attacking him, and he was trying to defend himself.
You expect us to believe that? Yes, I swear it's the truth.
She was a rather big girl, bigger than him. And he indicated that he'd gotten her in a chokehold to try to keep her off of him.
Cree, relax. Now I'll let you go, Stop fighting. You gotta stop hitting on me too, Stop. Stop, Cree.
He says Cree was fighting him back. He was, trying to calm her down, and I ended up suffocating her.
Cree, baby, get up.
He was trying to make it look like he accidentally killed her, and then he freaked out, took her body, and dumped it somewhere.
But detectives don't believe a word of it.
If that's going to be your story, the time to get it out is when she's dead. You call 911, and when the police arrive right there, that's when you tell the story. And the fact that you wait really diminishes the value of that story.
Whether or not he's telling the truth about how she died, the news of Desmond's confession and arrest does offer some closure to Cree's friends and family, though it can do little to ease their pain.
This is a nightmare that nobody wanted to actually believe.
I was devastated. I felt like how I'm going to tell my niece that her mother's not coming back.
It hurted me so bad. I really wanted him to be gone.
When he said that Cree's dead, I wanted to go down there and kill him. That was my response.
The family may get their wish, too. At Desmond's arraignment, prosecutors make it clear that they plan to seek the maximum punishment the law allows.
Because of his prior violent felony conviction, he was eligible for the death penalty.
The threat of death row is more than enough for Desmond to seek out a deal.
Desmond's lawyer says if you'll take the death penalty off the table, Desmond will show you guys where Cree's body is.
But prosecutors leave that decision up to Cree's family.
The plea was good enough for me. I want to see her put to rest so I can say goodbye.
On October 13th, 2016, 4 months after Cree disappeared, Desmond leads detectives to a roadside a half hour outside Greensboro.
He said, "This is the spot right here."
They get out and search.
It's not long before they find something.
They see a large trash bag that's kind of caught up in some trees.
Inside are human remains, badly decomposed and partially dismembered.
Her legs had been severed in the upper parts of the thigh, and so her legs were not there.
An autopsy confirms that the remains are Cree's.
The DNA from the remains are compared against DNA from cheek swabs that the family members provided. And sure enough, it's a match.
The medical examiner also determines that strangulation was the probable cause.
It sounded like Desmond's story about choking Cree to death contained at least a grain of truth.
However, contrary to Desmond's claims, police and prosecutors are convinced the crime was no accident.
He either knocked her unconscious or somehow was able to subdue her enough so that he could actually strangle her.
Though once Cree was dead, Desmond found himself in a dilemma.
I would surmise that initially the plan was just to put her in the dumpster, and then he realized how heavy a dead body of that size is, and he was unable to do that.
He then goes out to the home improvement store and gets his supplies, his handsaw, his plastic bags, his duct tape, comes back to the apartment and dismembers Cree.
That totally freaked me out.
You had to be a very cruel person to not only kill her, but cut her up.
Then, once he was finally able to move the body, Desmond had disposed of it on the side of the highway.
He put it in the back of the car and took it 30 miles away from here and pulled over to the side of the road and then rolled it down that embankment.
All while trying to maintain the illusion that Cree is still alive.
Desmond kept the phone active. When people would call, he would let it go to voicemail because he didn't want to speak, obviously. And then select ones, he would actually send a text back.
Desmond was just trying to think quick on his feet. That wasn't quick enough, not for people that knew her. She wouldn't have just left, and she wouldn't have just left her daughter either.
On June 26, 2018, Desmond pleads guilty to murder in exchange for life in prison without the possibility of parole.
He can't do anything else. He can't hurt anyone else. And that's the good thing about it.
Still, Cree's friends and family struggle to understand the pain he's already put them through.
I really don't know why he did it. Why couldn't you just walk away? You didn't think about your future. You didn't think about her daughter. You didn't think about her family.
Now Cree's daughter has to grow up without her loving mother, but thankfully she is surrounded by her caring family.
A mother, a friend, a sister, an auntie. You took all that.
I miss you, baby. And I ain't gonna never let you die in spirit.
This hard-working single mom thought she'd found true love.
They connected so quickly.
You took care of her kids.
It was going to be an amazing future.
Instead, it ended in a horrific crime.
Hello, I need a talk now.
She was on the floor, bound by the hands and legs.
She had a plastic bag around her head.
They think the person says.
But how did it happen?
She went out to a club.
You could be in danger just because you were out having fun. She was a beautiful girl. She got a lot of attention.
Did someone follow her home?
Or was the trouble already there?
There are some guys who are very possessive.
Duncan looked at Joe Schley and Agent Freihofer. They were all thinking the same thing. Brankel wasn't just apologizing. He was writing his own biography. He wanted them to know how smart he was. He wanted them to appreciate the art of the interstate. I'm a narcissist, Brankel admitted at one point. I know that. But at least I'm a successful one. Duncan turned off the tape. He's not successful. Duncan said, he's just finished. Chapter 21, The Fragility of the White Coat. Carl Jansen was a man who understood systems. As an executive for Atlantic Richfield Corporation, he navigated corporate hierarchies with surgical precision. He expected the same from the world around him. In 1996, Carl sat in a sterile examination room at Executive Health Group. He was there for his annual executive medical exam, a perk of his high-level position, designed to catch problems before they became crises. A man in a crisp white coat walked in. He was personable. He was professional. He introduced himself as Dr. Gerald Barnes. The exam was thorough, Carl would later testify. He asked the right questions. He checked my vitals. He performed a prostate exam with the practiced ease of a veteran physician. Carl left the clinic feeling reassured. His company had paid hundreds of dollars for this peace of mind. Executive Health Group was a top-tier facility. They wouldn't hire just anyone. The next evening, Carl was sitting in front of his television, a glass of wine in his hand. The news came on. Today, Gerald Barnes, seen here in 1981, was arraigned in federal court on charges of practicing medicine without a license. Carl froze. The face on the screen, the man being led away in handcuffs, was the same man who had palpated his abdomen 24 hours earlier. The wine glass nearly slipped from Carl's hand. It wasn't just the embarrassment, it was the violation. He had let an imposter touch him. He had shared his medical history with a ghost. I fully trusted them, Carl said, his voice hard with suppressed rage. I had no reason to think otherwise. Carl wasn't alone. Nearly 500 other patients had been treated by the Never Was. The resulting lawsuit was a multi-million-dollar wrecking ball. The evidence showed that Executive Health Group had failed to perform even the most basic background check. They hadn't called the medical board. They hadn't verified the face against the file. They had seen the white coat and assumed the man inside was real. Chapter 22. The Ghost in the BMW. Donna Hewins watched the speedometer needle climb past 80. David was driving, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. The black BMW was a shadow on I-65, a predator in its natural habitat. Donna looked at the floorboard, where a bag of tan coveralls sat next to a fake mustache that looked like a dead caterpillar. You did good today, Donna, David said, his voice smooth and terrifyingly calm. Donna didn't feel like she had done good. She felt like her soul was being eroded, one interstate interchange at a time. She remembered the first time he told her. They were watching a movie, something about a heist, and David had looked at her with a strange, searching light in his eyes. What would you think of me if I told you this is what I do for a living? She had said she would still love him. It was a reflex, a desperate attempt to keep the man she thought was a brilliant entrepreneur. She didn't realize she was signing up to be a getaway driver for a sociopath. Now, she was trapped in a cycle of Operation Intercepts and IBM headlines. She saw the way David looked at the newspapers. He didn't look at the money. He looked at the name they gave him. He loved being the bandit. He loved the fear he inspired in the tellers. We're a team. Bonnie, he would say, using the name from the movie. But she wasn't Bonnie. She was a waitress from a topless bar who was now listening to police scanners in the dark. She watched him walk into grocery stores, knowing he was handing notes to girls who were just trying to pay their rent. She wanted to jump out of the car. She wanted to scream, but then he would smile that smooth businessman smile, and she would remember why she fell for him. Or rather, she would remember the mask he wore when they first met. The problem was, the mask was starting to peel. Chapter 23, The Lobby of Broken Dreams. The real Dr. Gerald Barnes sat in the lobby of his Stockton office, watching the rain streak the windows. For 37 years, he had been an orthopedic surgeon. He had fixed broken bones and restored mobility to thousands. But his own name felt broken beyond repair. It almost gets to the point where you become calloused, he said to himself. Every time Barnbaum hit the news, Barnes's phone would start ringing. Friends, patients, and strangers calling to ask if he was the imposter doctor. He had changed his driver's license number 5 times. He had been denied credit because of Barnbaum's ghost accounts. He felt like he was being haunted by a version of himself that didn't exist. He thought about the family of John Mackenzie. He thought about Jill, the little girl who would never know her father. Barnbaum hadn't just stolen Barnes's identity, he had turned it into a weapon of death. He was crying in court, Barnes recalled, the memory making his stomach churn, crying about his grandchildren, crying about being sick. It was the final performance. Barnbaum was 74, weak and old, but even as he stood before the federal judge, he was still playing a role. He was playing the victim. I'm convinced the judge had said that if I were to let you free, you would do this again. Barnes knew the judge was right. Men like Barnbaum and Brankel don't stop because they are caught. They stop because they run out of air. He stood up, his joints aching. He was a real doctor. He had real work to do. But as he walked toward the examination room, he couldn't help but look in the mirror. He saw his own face, the face Barnbaum had never seen, yet had managed to hide behind for 2 decades. Chapter 24, The Mirror's Deception. Gerald Barnbaum sat in the common room of the Vasica Federal Prison in Minnesota. He was 74 years old, and the prison denim felt rough against his skin. But in his mind, he was still wearing the white coat. A fellow inmate approached him, a young man with a jagged scar on his arm. "Hey, Doc," the man whispered. "My arm. It's been aching. Think it's infected." Barnbaum leaned forward, his eyes instantly shifting into the physician's gaze. He palpated the scar with expert precision. He used the jargon he had learned from the correspondence courses. He spoke of cellulitis and lymphatic drainage. "You need to keep it clean. Son," Barnbaum said, his voice fatherly and authoritative. "I'll see if I can get you some antiseptic from the infirmary." The young man nodded, looking relieved. "Thanks, Doc. You're a lifesaver." Barnbaum smiled. It was the same smile he had given Rick D'Alessandro, the same smile he had given Lisa Roberts. He didn't think of himself as a murderer or a fraud. He thought of himself as a man who had been denied his true calling by a rigid, bureaucratic system. He truly believed he was better than the real Dr. Barnes. He had seen more patients. He had built more trust. He didn't think about John Mackenzie. He didn't think about the $5 million in fraudulent claims. He only thought about the next patient. He was a thespian who had found the ultimate stage. Even in prison, the performance must go on. Chapter 25. The Final Audience. The courtroom in 2004 was silent as David Brankel was led in. He was 46 years old, his impeccable businessman facade stripped away by months in the Knox County Jail. Donna was there, too, sitting in the back, her face pale and drawn. She had received house arrest and 5 years of probation. She was the lucky one. The judge looked at the stack of 43 unarmed bank robbery counts. You had intelligence, the judge said, his voice echoing in the chamber. You had a way with people, and you used it to tear down the very fabric of the communities you claimed to build. Brankel didn't look at the judge. He looked at the gallery. He was looking for his mother. He wanted her to see what he had accomplished. He wanted her to see the IBM bandit one last time. 21 years. That was the price of the boonie hat and the black BMW. Not a dime of the $175,000 in restitution would ever make its way to the Sperrys or the Logans. To the federal government, they were secondary casualties. To Brankel, they were just props he had used to reach the next scene. As he was being let out, Brankel caught the eye of Detective Larry Duncan. "You were good, Duncan," Brankel said, a faint, ghost-like smile touching his lips. Duncan didn't smile back. He watched as the doors to the holding cell slammed shut. He thought about the map in his office. He thought about the interstates that would always be there, indifferent to the men who used them to hide. The architecture of deceit was finally in ruins. But as the world kept turning, as new clinics opened and new interstates were paved, everyone knew that somewhere another mask was being made. Another actor was waiting for his cue. Chapter 26, The Echo of the Gavel. The sentencing of Gerald Barnbaum wasn't just a legal procedure. It was a final reckoning. In the wood-paneled courtroom of the federal building, the air felt heavy with the collective weight of thousands of violated lives. Lisa Roberts sat in the third row, her hands trembling in her lap. She had spent a year as the wife of a man who didn't exist. She had shared a bed with a ghost, made plans for a future with a phantom. Looking at Barnbaum, now weak, stooped, claiming illnesses he likely didn't have, she felt a cold, jagged anger. He was crying about his sick grandchildren, Lisa remembered, her voice hardening. But he never shed a tear for the people he hurt. He never thought about John Mackenzie's daughter. The judge looked down at Barnbaum over his spectacles. "Mr. Barnbaum, you are a menace, not because of your violence, but because of your total lack of an internal compass. You have used the most sacred of professions as a shield for your own vanity." 12.5 years, then another 10, as the bailiffs led him away. Barnbaum paused and looked back at Lisa. For a split second, the mask of the sick old man slipped. His eyes were sharp, defiant, almost amused. It was the look of a performer who knew he had given the performance of a lifetime, even if the audience was booing. He walked out of the courtroom, his chains rattling, heading for a prison in Minnesota that would become his final stage. He was 74, but in his mind, the play was never over. He just needed a new audience. Chapter 27, The Interstate Phantom. David Brankel sat in a cell in the Knox County Jail, staring at the concrete wall. He could still feel the vibration of the black BMW steering wheel in his palms. He could still hear the rush of the wind on the I-65. The detectives Duncan, Schley, Freihofer thought they had caught him. And they had. But they hadn't caught the reason. They think it was just about the money, Brankel whispered to the shadows. But money is just paper. It was about the chase. It was about being the smartest guy in a 100-mile radius. He thought about the bank in Lexington. Hit number 29. He had walked in with such confidence that the shoppers didn't even look up. He had handed the note to a teller who was chewing gum, and he had seen the moment the gum stopped moving. That was the moment he lived for. That was the RNACR, robbery as a refined art. He missed Donna, or rather, he missed the way she looked at him when he handed her the stack of bills. He missed being Bonnie and Clyde. But most of all, he thought about Michael. He had used his son as a prop, a visual aid to convince people like Alan Logan that he was a legitimate businessman. He wondered if Michael would ever understand that his father was a king of the interstates, a king of the grocery store vaults. He stood up and began to pace the small cell. 3 steps forward, 3 steps back. He was 46 years old. By the time he got out, the world would be different. The interstates would be crowded with self-driving cars. The bank marts would be gone. His era was ending. But for a few years, he had been the phantom. He had been the ghost of the interstate. And as he closed his eyes, he could almost feel the gas pedal under his boot, the needle climbing toward 100, the horizon opening up to a world that could never quite catch him. Chapter 28, The Shadow over Stockton. In Stockton, the real Dr. Gerald Barnes was trying to reclaim his life. It was like trying to clean up after a hurricane that had lasted 20 years. He sat at his desk, looking at a letter from a debt collection agency. They were demanding payment for a luxury car bought in Los Angeles in 1995. Barnes sighed and reached for his fraud kit, a thick binder of legal documents, affidavits, and police reports he had compiled to prove he wasn't the other Gerald Barnes. It's like a shadow that won't leave, he told his wife. I walk into a room, and I feel like people are looking for the handcuffs. He thought about the correspondence courses Barnbaum had taken in prison. The gall of it was what stung the most. A man using a jail cell to perfect a lie that would continue to poison Barnes's reputation. Barnes went to the window. Outside, the Northern California sun was shining on the quiet streets. He was a good surgeon. He had a good life. But he knew that somewhere in a federal database, his name was forever linked to words like manslaughter, Medicaid fraud, and imposter. He was the host of a parasite that had finally been removed. But the scarring was permanent. He looked at his medical license, the original one, framed on the wall. It was just a piece of paper, really. But in the wrong hands, it was a license to kill. I won't let him win, Barnes vowed. I will be the real one until the day I die. But as he turned back to the stack of debt collection letters, he knew that the ghost of the never was would always be lurking in the margins of his biography. Chapter 29, The Psychology of the Mask. Gerald Barnbaum loved the smell of rubbing alcohol and the starch in a white lab coat. To him, they weren't symbols of a job. They were the costume and the setting of his life's great work. Why do you do it, Gerald? A prison psychologist had once asked him. Barnbaum had smiled, that same charming, engaging smile that had fooled the FBI. Because, doctor, the truth is boring. The truth is a pharmacist in Chicago overbilling for aspirin. But a doctor is a god. A doctor is the person people look to when they are afraid. And I am very good at making people feel unafraid. He didn't see himself as a criminal. He saw himself as a creative. He had taken the raw materials of another man's life and turned them into a masterpiece of deception. He had forged duplicates of licenses, not out of greed, but out of a need to belong to a higher class of humanity. He remembered the first time he put on the coat, 1977. He had walked into a clinic in Orange County, and the way the nurses looked at him with deference, with respect, had been like a drug. It was better than the applause at the end of a college play. It was constant. It was real. He had forgotten that a doctor's life isn't just about the coat and the gaze. It's about the science. It's about the responsibility. When John Mackenzie died, Barnbaum hadn't felt guilt. He had felt a technical error. A missed cue. I'm an artist. He whispered to the walls of his cell in Waseca. The world just wasn't ready for my performance. He picked up a medical journal someone had left in the common room. He began to read. He needed to be ready, because in his mind, the next audition was just around the corner. Chapter 30, The Legacy of a Name. As the years passed, the names Gerald Barnbaum and David Brankel began to fade from the headlines. They were replaced by new imposters, new bandits, new ghosts. But the architecture they built remained. The healthcare system grew more diligent. Clinics began to verify licenses with more than just a phone call. The FBI tightened its security protocols for medical contractors. The grocery store bank marts added cameras, glass barriers, and guards. Yet, the core of the deception, the human desire to trust, remained unchanged. In Bloomington, the Sperrys and the Logans carried their scars with a quiet dignity. They had learned that a businessman's suit can hide a thief, and a consultant's smile can hide a sociopath. In Stockton, the real Dr. Barnes continued to heal people, his name finally his own again, though the shadow never quite vanished. And on the interstates of the Midwest, the black BMWs still sped past, their drivers unknown, their destinations a mystery. The story of the imposter and the bandit isn't just a story of crime. It's a story of the fragile masks we all wear, and the lengths some will go to become someone else. Because in a world that values the image over the substance, the man with the best mask will always be the most dangerous person in the room. The play is over. The highway is empty. But the shadows are still there, waiting for the next actor to step into the light. Chapter 31, The Echo of Silence. Jill Mackenzie, now a woman in her late 20s, stood before the former site of the Orange County Clinic. The building was gone, replaced by a generic strip mall featuring a dry cleaner and a frozen yogurt shop. There was no plaque, no memorial, no sign that a tragedy had occurred here in the winter of 1979. She closed her eyes and tried to summon a memory of her father. She had only a handful of photographs. A young man with a wide smile, thick 70s sideburns, and eyes that looked like hers. He was 29 when he died. Jill was now older than her father would ever be. He died clutching a prescription for dizziness, she whispered. She thought about Barnbaum. She had seen his later mugshots, the stooped, silver-haired man who looked like everyone's favorite grandfather. That was the most terrifying part. Evil didn't always wear a sneer. Sometimes it wore a lab coat and a stethoscope. She often wondered about the alternate timeline. If the doctor had been a doctor, her father would have been hospitalized. He would have lived. He would have been at her dance recitals, her graduation, the day she got her first job. Instead, he was a statistic in a Medicaid fraud investigation. Jill walked toward the yogurt shop. The world moved on so quickly, but for her, the architecture of the past was a permanent structure. She lived in the house that Barnbaum's lie had built, a house defined by an empty chair at every holiday dinner. Chapter 32, The Corporate Veil. In the high-rise boardrooms of Executive Health Group, the panic hadn't been about medical ethics. It had been about the bottom line. When the news broke in 1996 that their medical director was a 3-time convicted felon, the executives didn't rush to apologize to the patients. They rushed to their legal counsel. How did he get past HR? The CEO barked, slamming a hand on the mahogany table. He had a valid duplicate of Dr. Barnes's license, the HR director stammered. He had a background in medical direction. He interviewed flawlessly. He knew the terminology better than our actual surgeons. The problem wasn't just Barnbaum's skill. It was the corporate culture of the 90s. They wanted producers. They wanted medical directors who could process 40 physicals a day and keep the contracts with the FBI and Atlantic Richfield profitable. Barnbaum was a machine. He never complained about hours. He was personable with the clients. He was the perfect corporate doctor because he treated medicine like a business transaction. The multi-million-dollar lawsuit that followed wasn't just a punishment for Barnbaum. It was a verdict on the negligence of an entire industry. They had commodified trust, and Barnbaum had simply exploited the market. By the time the company declared bankruptcy, the executives had moved on to other firms, their golden parachutes intact. Only the patients, the Carl Jansens of the world, were left to wonder if the person currently examining them was a healer or a well-compensated ghost. Chapter 33, The Blueprint of a Lie. Alan Logan remembered the night David Brankel laid out the blueprints for Logan's great escape. They were sitting in the back office of the pet store, the air smelling of cedar shavings and tropical fish. Brankel had spread out high-quality architectural renderings that looked like they belonged in a Disney development office. This is more than a pet store expansion, Alan, Brankel said, his voice a low, hypnoticum. This is a family legacy, a sanctuary. We're going to have an indoor waterfall, a multi-sensory educational center, and a cafe. It's the Vanguard Capital way. Alan had looked at the drawings and saw a future where he wasn't just a man selling wet pets, but a developer. Brankel used trade secrets as a psychological weapon. He hinted that he was sharing insider knowledge, that the Logans were part of an elite circle. I'm leaving for Chicago at 6 a.m. for a meeting with some investors, Brankel had said, checking his expensive watch, the one he'd likely bought with a stolen credit card. If we want to break ground by spring, I need the initial retainer tonight to secure the contractors. Urgency. It was the closer for every deal. Alan didn't check the Vanguard Capital credentials. Why would he? Brankel had Michael with him, a quiet, polite boy who played with a toy car on the office floor. No one would bring their son to a scam, except Brankel. The blueprints were just ink on paper. They had no structural integrity, but they were beautiful to look at, just like Brankel's businessman suit, just like his life. Chapter 34, The Correspondence of a Con. From his cell in Waseca, Gerald Barnbaum was a prolific letter writer. He wrote to medical boards. He wrote to the FBI agents he had once treated. He even wrote to the real Dr. Barnes. Dear Gerald, one letter began, I find it ironic that you hold such animosity toward me. In many ways, I was a better version of you. I saw the patients you neglected. I gave them the comfort they sought. I was the face of the doctor they wanted. You are merely the name on the wall. Barnbound didn't see these letters as harassment. He saw them as clarifications. He was a man obsessed with his own narrative. In the prison library, he scoured the newspapers for any mention of himself, keeping a scrapbook of his infamy. To the prison guards, he was a model inmate. He was polite, educated, and always willing to help the less literate prisoners with their legal appeals. He became a jailhouse lawyer, using the same theater skills that served him as a jailhouse doctor. He had collected faces his entire life: the pharmacist, the doctor, the thespian, the fraudster. In the twilight of his life, he realized he didn't know which face was his own. He was a collector of lives, but his own gallery was empty. Chapter 35, The Final Curtain. The architecture of deceit is never truly finished. It is a living thing, an organic growth that feeds on the shadows of the human heart. As David Brankel's black BMW sat in a police impound lot, gathering dust, and Gerald Barnbaum's white lab coat was incinerated as medical waste, the world didn't become a safer place. It simply became a more suspicious one. The interstates still hum with the sound of tires on asphalt, thousands of people moving between lives, between identities. The clinics still hum with the sound of voices seeking healing, thousands of people placing their lives in the hands of strangers. We live in a world built on trust, yet haunted by the ghost of the imposter. We look for the boonie hat in the crowd and the fraudulent smile in the clinic, forever wondering if the person standing before us is real. But the real tragedy isn't the money stolen or the names hijacked. The real tragedy is the silence of the people who are no longer here. The silence of John Mackenzie. The silence of the Great Escape. The silence of the life the real Dr. Barnes should have led without a shadow. The masks have been removed. The stage is empty. The highway leads into the dark. And somewhere, in a basement or a motel room, a new actor is picking up a script. He is practicing his gaze. He is checking his mustache. He is waiting for you to look the other way. Chapter 36. The First Audition 1982. When Gerald Barnbaum walked out of the prison gates for the first time in 1982, he didn't look like a man who had been humbled. He looked like a man who had just finished a dress rehearsal. He stood on the side of the road, the California sun baking the asphalt, and took a deep breath. To him, the 3 years behind bars weren't a punishment. They were a medical sabbatical. He had spent his time in the prison library, not reading legal books, but devouring the journal of the American Medical Association. I need to be sharper, he told himself. The dialogue needs to be more contemporary. He arrived in Los Angeles with $50 and a suitcase. Within 48 hours, he had a new lab coat. He didn't look for a job at a major hospital. They had too many layers of bureaucracy. He looked for the cracks. He looked for the small, overworked clinics in neighborhoods where the patients were too tired to ask for credentials. He walked into a small family practice in the valley. "I'm Dr. Barnes," he said, flashing the smile he had practiced in his cell mirror. "I've just moved down from Stockton. I'm looking to pick up some shifts while I scout for a permanent location." The clinic manager was drowning in paperwork. She saw a well-dressed, articulate man who didn't look like a convict. She saw a solution to her staffing problems. "Can you start Monday, doctor?" she asked. "Monday would be perfect," Barnbaum replied. And just like that, the lights came up on the second act. He was back in the coat. He was back in the room. He was a god again. Chapter 37, The Ghost of Bloomington. Phil Sperry walked through the empty office space where a CR1 stood. The smell of David Brankel's expensive cologne, something with hints of cedar and bergamot, seemed to linger in the corners. The desks were gone. The high-end leather chairs were gone. And, as Phil soon discovered, several sets of his own designer suits were gone. He was cool, Phil whispered, touching the bare wall where a rendering of Trade Secrets had once hung. He was so smooth I didn't even feel the knife. In the weeks following Brankel's disappearance, Bloomington began to unspool. The rumors started at Sullivan's clothing store and moved like a fever through the business district. Everyone had a story. Everyone had been David Ed. Brankle hadn't just stolen money. He had stolen the city's sense of self-importance. He had convinced a dozen local leaders that they were part of a sophisticated architectural revolution. He had made them feel like Bloomington was the next Chicago. Now, the revolution was just a series of unpaid bills and a black BMW that was likely 100 miles away. Phil looked out the window at the Bloomington Square. He realized that Brankle's greatest trick wasn't the fake mustaches or the stolen plates. It was the way he reflected back at people exactly who they wanted to be. Phil looked down at his hands. They were shaking. He didn't know how to tell Bonnie that their brilliant consultant was a ghost who had haunted their kindness. Chapter 38. High stakes on the I-70. The rain was lashing against the windshield as David Brankle pulled the BMW into a rest stop along the I-70 near Blue Ash, Ohio. Donna was asleep in the passenger seat, her head tilted at an awkward angle. On the floorboard between her feet was a duffel bag containing $1,000 from a hit in Indianapolis. It was supposed to be a clean hit, but for the first time in 30 bank robberies, Brankle felt a prickle of genuine fear. The teller hadn't been scared. She had been angry. Is this some kind of joke? She had asked, looking at the note. Brankle had leaned in, the boonie hat shadowing his eyes. Go home alive, he had hissed, the scripted line feeling suddenly thin. He checked his fake mustache in the rearview mirror. It was peeling at the edges from the humidity. He looked at the interstate, the river of light and asphalt that had been his sanctuary. He felt like the river was starting to dry up. He had 43 robberies under his belt. He was the IBM bandit. He was a legend in the precinct houses of 3 states. But a legend is no place to hide. He looked at Donna. She deserved a better man, he thought. But a better man wouldn't have the guts to do what he did. David. Donna stirred, her voice thick with sleep. Where are we? Almost home, Brankle lied. He shifted the car into drive. He didn't know where home was anymore. He only knew the next interchange. Chapter 39, The Laboratory of Lies. Gerald Barnbaum's clinic was a master class in psychological warfare. He didn't just have a stethoscope. He had the right pens. He had the right medical journals on his desk, bookmarked with yellow sticky notes as if he were mid-study. He had a way of leaning back in his chair and rubbing his chin that suggested deep, academic contemplation. You have a slight murmur, Mrs. Henderson, he would say, his voice a perfect blend of concern and reassurance. Nothing to worry about today, but let's keep an eye on it. I want you on a low-sodium diet. I'll write you a referral for a specialist in Los Angeles. He never wrote the referral. He knew that by the time the patient followed up, he would likely be at a different clinic under a different name. His genius was in the administrative gaps. He knew that medical boards were slow to update their databases. He knew that background check companies often relied on the candidate to provide the contact information for their references. He had a network of burner phones and colleagues, fellow cons, or people he'd manipulated who would verify his brilliance. Dr. Barnes. Oh, he's the best diagnostic mind I've ever worked with, a voice would say over a static-filled line. Barnbaum was a virus that had learned to bypass the immune system of the medical establishment. He didn't just pretend to be a doctor, he became the doctor that the system wanted productive, efficient, and well-liked. He sat in his office at the North Hollywood Clinic, looking at the framed license he had stolen. He felt a surge of pride. He had outperformed the real Dr. Barnes in every way that mattered to the billing department. "I'm the one they want," he whispered. "I'm the one they need." Chapter 40, The Final Reckoning to 004. The silence in the federal courtroom was absolute as the judge prepared to read the restitution order for David Brankel. Brankel stood in the well of the court, his hands cuffed, his gaze fixed on a small crack in the mahogany paneling. He looked smaller than he had in the surveillance videos. The boonie hat was gone, replaced by a thinning crown of gray hair. $175,000, the judge read. Brankel felt a cold, hollow laugh in his chest. $175,000. He had spent that much on BMW repairs and designer suits in a single year. The money was gone vaporized into the interstates and the motel rooms of the Midwest. He looked back at the gallery. The Sperrys weren't there. The Logans weren't there. To them, David Brankel wasn't a criminal to be confronted. He was a natural disaster that had passed through their lives. They were busy rebuilding, too tired to watch him receive a sentence for crimes that didn't even include their losses. "I didn't rip them off," Brankel muttered to his lawyer. "I did legitimate work for them." He truly believed it. In the distorted theater of his mind, the consulting he did for the Logans was worth every penny of the $5,500 he'd scammed. The fact that the Great Escape was a pile of useless blueprints didn't matter. He had given them the feeling of success, and to Brankel, that was the most valuable commodity in the world. As he was led out of the courtroom to begin his 21-year stretch, he passed a window. He could see